It's the third smallest F-22 in the Freewing lineup, but it might be up there as one of the most fun jets that they sell. Hey there, I'm John, this is Two Brothers RC, and this is the Freewing F-22 70mm. Before I talk about this plane and what it can do, I wanted to mention today's sponsor. Don't worry, it's not some bullshit company, it's you. The Two Brothers community paid for this airplane so that we could bring it to everyone and showcase what it's capable of, while putting it through our impartial, absolutely no patent pending review system. Thanks guys, really appreciate you. Included in today's video will also be the F-22 64mm towards the end, but don't get your hopes up, it's kinda doo-doo. That said, let's take a look at how the F-22 70 handles in maneuverability. Right off the bat, I will say that the F-22 70 might be the best bang for your buck, performance-wise, that you're going to get in the Freewing lineup. No, I don't mean performance in the sense of putting a GPS into the plane, then going on Facebook to say you went 1 mile an hour faster than some other rando. What I do mean is that it's really quite capable in post-stall maneuvering, which is what I personally tend to care about. Specifically, this means that it's capable of cobra maneuvers, flat spins, and inverted flat spins. While true, it doesn't seem to backflip as well as the 80 or 90, even with the AGF servo upgrade and the stabs linked below, it makes up for it by doing some of the most insane rudder rolls that I've ever seen a plane do. Yes, this is literally all rudder and nothing else. It's crazy shit. But enough editorializing. Let's see how it stacks up to the review metrics. Is it prone to accelerated stalls? No, not at all. It might be if you're one of those people who stuffs the biggest battery into the jet that you can find, but on my recommended SMC 3600 to 4000 class battery, you won't have any issues with stalling under normal maneuvering speeds and G-forces. If you're yanking it around, you can't expect to keep smooth airflow over the plane. The F-22 passes the first checkpoint. It seems to me that it was quite easy to make less nose heavy. All I had to do was slam a pack as far back as it would go. Normally, I'd also have to move the wiring as far aft as possible, but the F-22 70 and 80 both kinda suffer from this half-hatch battery design that doesn't go anywhere near as far back as the F-22 90 does. That isn't to say that the design of the 70 and 80's hatch compartment is bad, it's just not as good as the design of the 90. Which allows for a much more aggressive center of gravity if you want it. The F-22 passes this checkpoint as well, though not as well as I was hoping it would. Does it take off and land without struggling? Well, it certainly takes off pretty easy, don't it? However, landing isn't hard either. Unlike the F-22 90 or 80, I don't have any crazy complex wing setup on this jet. It's just a simple dual elevator configuration with normal ailerons, normal flaps, and a trimmable nose wheel. So I can't bring it in with crow or anything else that might help it land better, yet it lands just fine. And in fact is quite easy to pull a wheelie with. So long as you're keeping some power on while you touch down, I'd say it passes this checkpoint too. The next checkpoint looks for adequate thrust. I literally do not care how fast a plane goes because at some point the human eye can't even tell the difference between 150 and 140 miles an hour. So whether it looks fast and whether it can perform the maneuvers that I'm asking it to do is what I care about. And in that regard, it certainly does, and it doesn't complain about it either. The F-22 70 has a great 2,210 kV inrunner motor whose only drawback is that the screw size is ever so slightly too small to fit the KMRC afterburner system using the screws that the burner ships with. So if you've got some zip ties laying around, you can just run them through the motor holes in the back. It is annoying, granted, but seeing the nozzles light up, especially on cloudy days or evenings, is so totally worth it. The F-22 70 passes this checkpoint as well. Our final checkpoint in this category looks for easy stall recovery, and I'd say the F-22 has absolutely zero issues with that in general. However, That isn't to say that the jet doesn't get into weird situations sometimes. Due to the complete lack of ventral fins, meaning stabilizing devices on the belly, the F-22 can and will depart laterally from controlled flight in a high alpha pass.
Nice.
Well before it actually stalls the wings. This is because the vertical stabilizers get blanked out by the wings once the jet slows down enough, and when that happens, you either yaw in one direction until air flows over the tail again, or you crash, and in my case, well, you kinda see what happened, don't you? Thankfully, no major damage except for the tip of the left stabilator, which dug into the grass and ripped off. I found it next day at the club and just casually glued it back on with medium CA glue. Ha! The F-2270 earns a 5 out of 5 here. Moving on to literally everyone's favorite section ever, at least when a jet scores this high, the F-22 manages 2, 2.5, 3, 4, and 5 minutes total of flight on average for me. Now, if you're new to the channel, or maybe you didn't hear what I said earlier, I don't care about speed. I know I'm weird, right? What I care about is how a plane performs. That means I don't peg the throttle, and I try to keep my batteries living their best life by not pissing them off. So to get 5 minutes of flight on average, you will have to back off the throttle a little, but you should have no problems flying at aggressive still. It's a little more difficult to consistently get 5 minutes with SMC 3600s, but the new HV2 4000 packs made it super easy, and I wasn't being gentle with the jet either. The F-22 earns a 5 out of 5 here. As per usual with Freewing, the F-22 features functional yet stiff wheels, passing and failing the first 2 checkpoints in our landing gear review. The wheels are attached to a suspension system, which also passes our next checkpoint. If you want to take off from grass, it is possible to do it. This goof where I missed the runway while being cheeky is proof of that.
Oh, whoops.
Though I'd say you're better off hand launching it to save battery power if you're going to fly from grass. It's super easy to do and you don't even need safe to do it. This is all just relying on normal AS3X Plus that I demo regularly. The gear didn't seem to need any maintenance even with this last second gear drop causing the jet to land on a half extended nose wheel, and the gear worked flawlessly for me overall with no retract issues that I could see. If you do fly off grass on the regular, I suspect that you'll see damage to the foam where the retracts mount to the fuselage over time, but on pavement it should be a non-issue. Astute observers might notice that I dinged the MiG-29 80mm the other week for being shitty for grass pilots and might want to call me out for not dinging the F-22 here for the same reason. No, I'm not a motion shill. The issue is that I just haven't disproven the general theory of relativity yet and created my own time machine to travel forward into the future and find out if the gear will hold up or not. So far, no complaints from people that I've seen. It's nothing like the long-term complaints from many people that I saw regarding the MiG. The F-22 gets a 4 out of 5 here. Moving into reviewing the fit and finish of the F-22, the jet didn't have blotchy paint or any other surface weirdness like damaged foam, aside from one part of the nose where it got dinged at the factory. I very highly doubt that every F-22 had this issue, otherwise the RC Group's thread would be full of screeching about it, so I'm going to err on the side of caution here and give it a pass on both initial checkpoints. It does feature plastic hinges. They're gapless, but it's really rare to see gapless hinges on single 70mm EDF jets, so that's why the metric looks for plastic hinges or gapless hinges. I would prefer gapless, but I'll take plastic any day. Anything beats a foam hinge. I'm looking at you, B1 Lancer from X-Fly, who costs twice as much and has 4 times the foam hinge that this plane does. Feels bad, man. As is usual for Freewing, we do see decals instead of stickers passing again, which is nice, because stickers cover up molded details in the foam and just look like ass compared to a proper water slide decal. Maybe they cost more money, but I don't care. I want to see decals because I paid for surface quality, not for gigantic stickers that cover up every part of the plane. Seriously, what is even the point of having a mold with detail on it to begin with if some companies just cover up all the damn detail in the damned plane? Speaking of details, this jet has gigantic panel lines that I think look really grody. I get that the smaller something gets, the bigger the details have to be to pop visually, but come on man, this is pretty bad. Oh, and back to the decals, they do stick, which is great because that passes the final checkpoint here, earning the jet a 5 out of 5. Moving on to our final review section, we'll cover the F-22's avionics and lighting. Going strictly by the review criteria, the F-22 features metal servos throughout the airframe. That's great, but they're typical Freewing servos. Loud, not very precise, plenty of torque, but not a whole lot of throw. I did leave every servo alone except for, you guessed it, replacing the two stabilator servos with AGFRC B13 DLM units. I used the long arms that they come with and maxed out the throw. I did also have to shim them in there with some toothpicks to make them fit and stay put. It is awesome. The precision is sorely needed on full-flying stabilators. It's kinda stupid at this point that Freewing still sells imprecise stab servos, given the importance of a full-flying elevator and how much control authority that it gives you. Yes, the jet is eminently flyable on the stock stab servos. There's plenty of YouTube videos showing this, but let's be real. The kind of stuff that I'm doing here is much easier with a pair of servos that cost $40 total and give you so much more maneuverability in return. Plus, the peace of mind knowing that you can just throw this mofo around and you won't have to worry about the servos ever stripping. Anyhow, that's a lot of words to say that it passes the first checkpoint. I didn't notice any ESC overheating issues at all. That's awesome, and it also passes there. Even at this time of year, it is possible for an ESC to overheat. Trust me, I've seen it myself. Oh, and hey, guess what? It doesn't feature any lighting at all. I really love paying $300 for a jet and have 0 lights come with it. That's awesome. You can tell how happy I am about this. Before you say, "You'll never say this about Horizon airplanes, John," I also feel that the E-flite Viper 70 for $350 should be coming with lights in the wingtips too, at minimum. I'm just becoming more vocal about it now. Maybe I'll get around to re-reviewing the Viper 70 and say the same thing in that video too. Unfortunately for the F-22, it does fail both lighting checks. That sucks. It doesn't have a well-designed battery tray either, in my view. It's very difficult to get the receiver in there for customization of the control surfaces, and you don't really have much room to move the battery. It's wholly unlike the 90. This tray does work, but if you've flown the 90, you'll know what I'm talking about. Both the 70 and 80 have failed this checkpoint, and it's unfortunate because they already knew how to make a good tray. I just don't get why they couldn't have at least given you a little more space aft to work with for the battery compartment. The F-22 earns a 2 out of 5 here. Overall, the F-2270 earns a 21 out of 25. That's a pretty good score if I say so myself, and I do say so. However, it definitely could have been perfect if not for 3 things. The completely missing lighting system, which is just bonkers to me, knocked it down 2 points, and the ass tier battery tray that I despise putting batteries into knocked it down another point. The smaller they make these trays, the more annoying it becomes to put batteries into them, and also to put receivers in there and all that other crap you gotta do. That said though, don't let my griping turn you away from this plane. It is a pretty good jet for the price, and you can always add your own lighting to it if you're brave enough. Going by our visual graphic here on screen, you can definitely see where the strengths and weaknesses are. Heavy on the agility, flight time, and fit and finish, above average landing gear, but pretty not so great avionics? Well, you gotta have some trade-offs to keep the price down, I suppose. But that doesn't mean that I'm not going to tell you what those trade-offs are, so you know what you're buying and whether it's worth buying to begin with. Let's cover the gyro gains in the F-22 now. You can see them on screen. This jet features a throttle to gain mix. It's a key part of the setup. This is a technique that I developed a while back, inspired by full-scale flight computers, which reduces gain as the throttle and the jet's speed increases. When using the gains on screen, the same wing and tail type that I'm using and the same stab servos linked below, you'll get the same performance that you're seeing here, assuming that you possess similar stick skills. Though, let's be real, I'm nothing special. All you're seeing me doing is the result of practice and patience, and if I can do this, you can do it too. Oh, so it helps to have some techniques like the gain mix here. You can see the graph and points you need to set up to control the mix so that it doesn't oscillate at any airspeed. If this is foreign to you, hop on our Discord server via the link below and ask for help in the Tech and Setup channel. Oh, and before I wrap up, to use the same setup that I'm using here, make sure that you're on Discord and you'll find the setup file for the F-22 70mm along with guides on how to get the differential stabilators, aka ailerons, functioning on this jet, along with gyro stabilizing them in both roll and pitch. You can see how to do this in our AS3X Plus guide, which is also linked below. I'd make a setup guide for this jet, but it's actually really easy enough that it doesn't really need one. But if you need help, please don't hesitate to ask for assistance on Discord. Now, I did promise you some flying footage of the 64mm F-22 up in front. The TBRC community also helped pay for this jet, and it took me exactly one flight to figure out that I don't like it. It's not because it's small or because it's an F-22, because you can have small airplanes and small F-22s that fly well. This thing just doesn't fly the way that I want to. It's super nose heavy out of the box, there's no retracts, which isn't really a huge issue, but the main problem is that there's no rudders. So you've got an F-22 shaped object that does not fly like an F-22. I can forgive the lack of retracts because 64mm jets are tight on space and weight, but when FMS, E-flite, and other companies can sell 64mm jets with rudders, the decision to continue selling this without a rudder, which, when coupled with its nose heaviness, effectively limits its maneuverability severely, making it not really fun for me to want to fly, and is the entire reason why I'm not even going to deign to give it an actual review. I'm not going to say that it sucks, because there's people out there who love hand tosser jets that you can fly at a park, and if that's all I cared about, the F-22-64 would be great. But I expect a little bit more out of my jets with full flying stabilators, like the ability to at least do some post-stall maneuvering. So, there you have it. I could give it a review, but honestly, I don't really think it needs one. You get this jet if you want something you don't really give a f about to throw around at a park. If it crashes, it's not a big deal. It's not like this jet costs all that much. I'll get deeper into my thoughts on the 64 F-22 and the upcoming F-22 lineup tier showdown that should be coming soon. Speaking of the TBRC community, huge thanks to every one of our channel supporters on twobrosrc.com/supporters, including our mega fans, Sarasota RC Squadron, Michael Smith, Casey Gray, JR Man, and Todd. And a very special thanks goes out to our ultra fan, Seahawk92. Don't worry if I didn't say your name, I still love all of you guys equally, no matter how much you've chosen to support what we do. Coming up soon, because there's something neat that I can't talk about yet, will be the SR-71 from Freewing. You guys helped us pay for it, and it's finally gonna show up at some point. Not next week, but soon. See you guys again.